The Little Belly Dancer. Narrated, written, and created by Tayler Turner. Chapter 1. Surrounded by swirls of colorful fabrics, and in the dim light of the oil lamp, Jubaila couldn't help but feel enchanted by her elder sister's profession. "Can you adjust this hem? Just a little?" Layla asked. She held up one of her mini skirts waving about her ankles. Jubaila nodded, taking the needle from between her pinched lips and threading it through the silken fabric. Coins and beads dangled from a sarong, encircling Layla's hips and made cheerful jingles even with the slightest movement. "Who are you dancing for tonight?" Jubaila asked. She kneeled on one of the few rugs in the room and set to work, hemming the skirt with tiny, unseen stitches as Layla had once taught her. "Shh! You'll wake Mother and Father," Layla advised, not unkindly. "Some rich foreign men." "Let's see your moves, Juby. We can do it together." "Dance? Right now?" Jubaila laughed. "I can't. I'm sewing." "Are you sure? Then we can both dance for the Pasha." "Really? You're going to dance for the Pasha?" Jubaila's face lit up at the thought of Layla entertaining such esteemed guests. "Keep your voice down," Layla giggled. "Not right now, but maybe someday I will." "I've never even seen you perform." Jubaila's knit furrowed in concentration. "And Mama and Baba, well..." Layla studied her sister in earnest, plaiting her long dark hair in thought. "Why don't you come watch tonight?" I don't think so," Jubaila stammered. Tomorrow is my day to clean Kaya's stable, and I still need to mend the nets for Baba's boat." Layla brushed the braids out of her hair and reached for a finger of charcoal to dab her eyelids. "The donkey and nets will wait. Come, I'll have you home before dawn." Snapping the thread with her teeth, Jubaila studied her handiwork and stood, satisfied. Layla looked as lovely as a painting and as radiant as a goddess in her dancing attire. Despite never meeting the other members of the Gwazi, Jubaila was certain her sister was the most breathtaking of them all. "Last chance, Juby. Will you come or not?" Layla crossed her arms and met her sister's gaze. Jubaila chewed her bottom lip for the span of a few heartbeats before nodding. Even if her parents looked down on Layla's profession, it was no secret that the majority of their income was earned by her dancing. What was the harm in seeing why? "Good." Layla smiled and reached for her cloak. "Let's be off then." It seemed so sudden. Just as soon as Jubaila had made the choice to join her, they were leaving. She wrapped her cloak around her shoulders to shield the chill of the evening air and closely followed Layla down the dusty path. She made certain to remain in step with her older sister, as the night crowd in Cairo was much different than the faces she was used to seeing in daylight. They passed many familiar dwellings before entering the local bazaar, where a handful of shops and merchants still hawked their wares well into the night. They weaved through the crowds of European and American men who spoke foreign languages. Jubaila laughed with gusto. The scent of cumin and coriander mingled with alcohol in the air. The atmosphere was a joyous one, yet nerve-wracking to traverse without the watchful eye of her Baba. Layla watched for Jubaila's hand and was gratefully accepted. Soon they came to a large building that Mama had once pointed out was for important people. Layla knocked on the door. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Jubaila shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. I'm sure. Don't be scared, sweet. This is like any other night, I promise. Jubaila nodded. Then her attention snapped to the man who answered the door. He was tall, pale, older. He spoke their language in broken words and phrases. She could hardly understand him. Gowazi, Layla said simply. Recognition dawned on his face. Then he looked at Jubaila with curiosity. She wished she could disappear inside of her cloak. With me, Layla tapped her sister's head, then moved the hand to her chest. With me, she repeated. The man nodded his understanding and waved them both inside. The noise was overwhelming. A small group of men played instruments in the corner, while more sang songs in their mother tongue. Cards were dealt and alcohol passed around freely. A few dancers had already arrived and moved to greet Layla. Jubaila was introduced with pride, and the way that others fawned over her made her want to hide her face in her sister's skirts. It's okay, Al-Gashira, we won't make you dance. One of Layla's dancer companions giggled and held out her hand. Jubaila took it and offered a shy smile. Hearing herself referred to as little sister took away the tension in her shoulders. She's so cute, another dancer commented. Layla, you're on, the companion closest to Layla whispered. Layla nodded and winked at Jubaila. Stay with them, Jubi. They'll make sure you stay out of trouble. All right. Jubaila squeezed the hand holding hers and huddled beneath the watchful eyes of the other dancers. Layla took center stage, and the effect of the room was immediate. Loud conversations dimmed to murmurs, and the band ceased their jaunty tune. All eyes turned to Layla, who spread her arms and awaited the first beats of the song. When the drums and bells began, Layla swayed like the waves of the Nile, reacting to the rhythm as if it was a part of her. Jubaila stood transfixed on her sibling. She truly looked like a princess. Layla's skirts swayed and swirled around her ankles, the bells and coins at her hips jingling in time with the music. When she advanced on different sections of the crowd, the men nearby whistled and clapped. She returned to their affections with a demure smile, but never stopped moving. She's always the crowd favorite, Al-Gashira, the dancer holding her hand whispered to Jubaila. We all wish we could dance like that. Layla brought her arms above her head and clasped her hands, hips rocking side to side in a tantalizing display that reminded Jubaila of the way she'd seen snakes slither through the sand. The performance was so entrancing that Jubaila oftentimes forgot to breathe. When it was over, applause erupted the entire room, echoing off the halls of the tavern. Dozens of coins were tossed in her direction, and one brave man approached with a handful of blue lotus flowers. Layla humbly accepted the bouquet of flowers, but left someone else to pick up the coins. How did I do? Layla asked when she reached her small group of companions. It was an open question, but she looked pointedly at Jubaila. You were wonderful, Jubaila exclaimed. You were so beautiful, Layla. Layla grinned and plucked one of the lotuses from the bunch. She placed it carefully behind Jubaila's ear and kissed her on the forehead. I had to do my best since you were watching. The rest of the evening enjoyed separate dances from each young woman of the troupe and a series of ensemble pieces with all of them included. Jubaila thought that Layla was the best of them all, but kept that opinion to herself. As the night moved into the early hours of the morning, Jubaila found it difficult to stay awake. All right, let's get you home, Jubi, Layla said once they were finished. They clasped hands and began to walk home. The streets were nearly empty, save for a few early risers heading for their boats. I have to take care of Kaya, Jubaila remembered, her thought interrupted by a wide yawn. I'll take care of Kaya, Layla laughed. You get some sleep, Jubi. What about the nets? You can take those after you wake up. I'll tell Baba you're not feeling well, okay? Thank you, Layla. They crept through the house as not to wake their parents, and Layla tucked Jubaila in with a kiss before she changed to take care of the donkey. The next morning, Jubaila awoke to the sound of donkey moans as the sun spilled bright orange into her room. She looked around, sleepy-eyed, and walked towards the bathing room. Layla walked by the bathing room and caught Jubaila about to rinse her face. Let's go to the river and get clean. Jubaila and Layla walked down the sandy road towards the Nile. Neighbors passing by exchanged greetings with the sisters. Carrying their baskets on top of their heads, Layla bumped Jubaila playfully with her hip and almost knocked her basket over. "Hey!" Jubaila exclaimed. "You will have to move your hips like that someday. Here, bump me." Jubaila tried to bump her sister back, but with her small frame, she bumped her whole body against Layla. "That is not your hip," Layla laughed. At last, they reached the Nile, where patches of people stretched out about the river while children bathed and played. Layla and Jubaila slipped off their house dresses and entered the river. Jubaila shivered. "It's not even that cold, Juby." Layla slipped her hands beneath the water and splashed Jubaila. "Stop that!" She smiled and splashed her sister back. "It's time to get clean." Jubaila then grabbed her rag to wash. "Pass me the soap." Layla held out her hand. "I need to wash my hair first." Jubaila passed her sister the soap, and Layla dunked beneath the surface. Then Layla flipped her hair back with a flourish and looked at Jubaila. "That's how you get the foreigners' money." Jubaila laughed. She tries to flip her hair in the same way, but instead it slapped her in the face. They giggled, followed by more playful splashing. "Look, Juby, squat like this, but with your feet together." Layla sunk down so the water was level with her chest. "When you want to get up gracefully, you start slowly." Layla rose from the water. "And then you raise your arms like this." She raised her left arm, starting with her shoulder and ending at the tip of her fingers, moving like a gentle wave. She repeated the wave with her right arm, and it reminded Jubaila of the wings of a bird. "Now you try." Jubaila mimicked her movements in the river and moved as slowly as she could. She nearly lost her balance but regained it, lifting her arms in the same wave-like motion. The two stood in the river, moving their arms like twin cobras. As the sun rose higher, their silhouettes danced to welcome the morning. That night, Jubaila dreamed of her sister's breathtaking routine performed in front of the Pasha. In her dream, the Pasha was so taken with her that he married Layla and gifted palaces and gold to their family. Layla continued to dance for the soldiers stationed in Egypt, bringing home the coins of foreign countries and stories for Jubaila. On another handful of occasions, Jubaila slipped away to watch her sister perform again and learned about her companions. For 5 years, Layla supported her family through her dancing, going so far as to use her savings when Mama and Baba were sick from one especially poor season of illness. Despite their parents' constant cautioning to Jubaila that she never become a dancer, they left Layla to her own devices. One evening, shortly following Jubaila's 18th birthday, she returned from the market to find Layla and Baba in a heated argument.
"You chose dancing over your family?"
Baba exclaimed. His face was wrought with frustration and anger. Mama watched the exchange from across the table. Her lips were pursed, and tears streamed from her cheeks. "Baba, it is what I love. You cannot take that from me."
"Do you know what they call you? A prostitute, Layla. You're shamed for housing a woman who sells herself."
Jubaila's limbs went cold and her heart raced. She'd never heard her parents say such mean things about them. About either of them. "You know that is not what I do." Layla's features turned dark.
You must end this silly fascination now!
Unable to hold her tongue any longer, Jubaila stepped in and set her food-filled basket on the floor. Baba? Layla? What's going on? They both looked at her, and Jubaila could feel the tension between them like a line of electricity. The Gawazi are banished from Cairo, Layla said carefully. I can no longer dance here.
Your sister is abandoning us in favor of dancing, Jubaila. She's leaving.
Baba stood from the table and made his way towards the door. He opened it, then glared at Layla one last time.
You are no family to me.